There comes a point in life when a person stops asking, "What have I achieved?" and quietly begins asking something else. Am I at peace? No one announces this shift. It doesn't happen at a birthday party, or in a meeting, or in front of other people. It happens alone, maybe in a car, waiting for a light to change. Maybe in a kitchen late at night when the dishes are done and the house has gone quiet. Somewhere around 45, 50, 55, the question changes. And once it changes, it doesn't change back. Let me tell you about a man named Henry. He lived in a small town outside Gothenburg, in a house with a green roof and a garden he had never quite finished building. For 31 years, he worked at a shipping company. He was good at his job, reliable, the kind of man other people trusted to make decisions. He raised 2 children. He paid off a mortgage. He drove the same blue car for 11 years because it still worked, and because replacing things that still worked never felt right to him. By most measures, Henrik had succeeded. He had a title, a pension, a retirement party with a cake and a card signed by 40 people, most of whom he barely knew. And yet, on the evening of that party, after the guests had gone home, after his wife had gone to bed, Henrik sat alone in his living room with the lights off. He wasn't sad exactly. He wasn't sure what he was. He just sat there in the dark, listening to the house breathe. This is the part of life no one prepares you for. Not the failure. Failure people expect. Failure has a shape. You can see it coming sometimes and brace for it. But this quiet, formless feeling after you've done everything you were supposed to do, this has no name. Some call it emptiness. That word is too dramatic. It's closer to stillness, an unfamiliar stillness, because for so many years, the noise of effort had filled every room of your life. And now the noise is gone. And in its place is you. We are taught early on to chase certain things. A career, a house, a reputation, a sense of being needed, useful, important. No one tells us when we are 25 that there is a second chase waiting on the other side of the first one. That once you've built the life you were told to build, you may find yourself standing inside it, wondering whose life it actually is. This is not a crisis. It rarely feels dramatic enough to be called a crisis. It is quieter than that, more like a slow leak, a gradual realization that achievement and peace were never actually the same thing. They simply felt similar for a while, because both required effort. But effort toward peace and effort toward success, these pull a person in 2 very different directions. Henrik's wife, Astrid, noticed it before he did. She wasn't worried. She had seen this in her own father decades earlier. That strange softening that happens to people once the urgency of life starts to fade One evening, a few weeks after his retirement, she found Henrik standing in the garden, just standing, looking at nothing in particular. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. He was quiet for a moment. "I'm trying to remember," he said. "The last time I did something simply because I wanted to. Not because it was useful. Not because someone needed it from me. Just because I wanted to." Astrid didn't answer right away. She just stood beside him in the cold evening air and let the silence hold the question instead of trying to fill it. There is a particular kind of tiredness that comes after decades of being useful. It isn't physical exhaustion. It's something deeper. The tiredness of having spent so many years measuring your worth by what you produced, what you provided, what you accomplished. Useful is not the same as peaceful. A person can be endlessly useful and never once feel at rest. And many people, especially those raised to value hard work above almost everything else, don't realize this distinction until much later in life, until the achievements stop arriving as quickly, until the title fades, until the children grow distant in that natural, necessary way that children do, until the mirror shows a face that has clearly lived, and the question becomes unavoidable. Lived for what? Success, in the way most of us were taught to understand it, is something measured from the outside. A salary, a position, a milestone someone else can see and recognize. Peace is different. Peace cannot be measured by anyone standing outside of you. It is felt only from within, quietly, privately, often without witnesses. This is perhaps why peace is so easy to overlook for most of a lifetime, because the world rarely applauds it. No one throws a party because you finally feel calm. No one writes "at peace" on a resume. And so for years, we chase the things that are visible while the thing we actually need, the quiet, steady feeling of being okay inside our own life, waits patiently in the background, unmeasured, unspoken, and almost entirely ignored. There's an old idea, common in many Nordic households, though rarely spoken aloud, that a calm life is a successful life. Not a loud one, not a celebrated one. A calm one. A life where the coffee is warm, the house is quiet, and no one is performing for anyone. This idea is unfashionable in a world that prizes ambition above almost everything. But it has not disappeared. It simply waits patiently for people to grow tired enough of chasing to finally notice it. Henrik began to notice it slowly. It started with small things. He began making his morning coffee more slowly, simply to enjoy the smell of it, rather than drinking it quickly on his way out the door, the way he had for 31 years. He began taking walks without a destination, just walking, watching the way the light moved through the trees near his house, something he had passed 1,000 times before without truly seeing. He began calling his old friend Lars, not because there was a reason to call, but because he missed the sound of an old familiar voice. These were not large changes. No one would have called them an achievement. But for Henrik, they were the beginning of something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Stillness chosen on purpose. It would be easy to romanticize this, to suggest that peace simply arrives once success no longer matters. But it isn't that simple. Letting go of the chase is one of the hardest things a person can do, especially after decades of believing that the chase itself was the meaning. There is grief in it, a real quiet grief. Grief for the version of yourself who believed the next promotion, the next achievement, the next milestone would finally bring the calm you were searching for. Grief for the years spent waiting for permission to slow down. Permission that never came, because no one was ever going to give it. You had to give it to yourself. This grief is rarely spoken about. It doesn't look like sadness from the outside. It looks like retirement. It looks like a quiet evening. It looks like an ordinary Tuesday. But inside, it can feel like mourning. Mourning the years spent believing that being busy was the same as being alive. Astrid understood this kind of grief better than Henrik did, because she had lived through her own version of it years earlier, when their children left home and the house, once loud with footsteps and arguments and laughter, became quiet in a way she hadn't expected. She remembered how strange that silence had felt at first, almost unbearable, and then slowly how necessary it became. The silence isn't empty, she told Henrik one evening as they sat together on the porch, watching the last light fade behind the trees. It just sounds empty at first, because you're used to filling every space with something. Once you stop needing to fill it, you start to hear what was underneath it the whole time. Henrik asked her what that was. She thought for a long moment. Yourself, she said. Just yourself. Without the noise. This is, perhaps, the quiet truth hidden underneath the question of peace versus success. Success often asks, what can you build outside of yourself? Peace asks something else entirely. Who are you when nothing needs to be built? These are not the same question. And for most of a lifetime, many of us only ever answer the first one. It is not that success is wrong or meaningless or something to be ashamed of. Henrik never regretted his career. He was proud of what he built, the people he supported, the life he provided for his family. But pride and peace, it turns out, are not interchangeable. A person can be deeply proud of their life and still feel a quiet ache for something they never gave themselves permission to feel. Rest, real rest, not the kind you take between tasks, but the kind that asks nothing of you at all. There is a particular image that stays with people, who have lived long enough to understand this shift. An old couple sitting together in a quiet room, not speaking, not needing to speak, tea growing cold beside them, snow falling outside the window softly, without urgency. To a younger person, this image might look like sadness, like a life that has run out of things to say. But to someone who has lived through the long chase of success, through the decades of proving, achieving, providing, this image looks like something else entirely. It looks like arrival. Not the arrival of getting somewhere, the arrival of no longer needing to. Henrik never quite figured out, in any formal sense, how to find peace. It wasn't something he completed like a project or checked off like a goal. It was something he slowly allowed. He allowed the mornings to be slower. He allowed his thoughts to wander without needing to lead anywhere productive. He allowed himself to sit with Astrid in silence, without filling it, without performing closeness, simply existing beside her. He allowed himself, for the first time in decades, to do nothing and to not feel guilty about it. That more than any retirement party, more than any pension, more than any title he had once carried, that was the real milestone. Not something he earned, something he finally permitted. If you are listening to this and you recognize even a small part of yourself in Henrik's story, the quiet tiredness, the unfamiliar stillness, the strange ache that comes after years of effort, know that this feeling is not a failure. It is not a sign that something has gone wrong in your life. It is more likely a sign that something is finally becoming honest. The chase was never going to lead to peace. Peace was never at the end of the chase. It was always somewhere else, quieter, slower, and far closer than it seemed. It was in the coffee growing warm in your hands, in the silence of a house that no longer needs to be filled, in the people who sit beside you without needing anything from you at all. Success will always ask you to become more. Peace simply asks you to be still. And after 45, after 50, after a lifetime of becoming, perhaps stillness is not the absence of a meaningful life. Perhaps it is the quiet reward for having lived one. Somewhere outside Gothenburg, in a house with a green roof, the lights go off one by one each evening. Henrik and Astrid sit together a while longer in the dark, listening to the house breathe. Not because there is nothing left to do, but because, finally, there is nothing left they need to prove. And in that quiet, unremarkable moment, two people, an old house, a cold cup of tea, there is more peace than success could ever have offered. It simply took a lifetime to learn how to hear it. If this quiet moment resonated with you, you are always welcome here. This channel was created for slow reflections, honest emotions, and the thoughts many people carry silently through life. If you'd like more stories like this, You can gently subscribe and return whenever you need a peaceful place to think, feel, or simply listen. Thank you for spending this moment here tonight. Take care of yourself and rest well.